Continuation with the export-import circulars of RBI. Now I'm talking about these two terms. Actually, we stopped on point number 7, but the remaining points I'm not discussing because that is something general. This is point number 12 and 13. This attracted me to discuss a little bit more.
So regarding escrow also, I want to get some information, sir.
Escrow account is an account opened with a specific condition, a specific instruction. So any account can be called as escrow account. Right? Say, for example, you open an account in which you deposit on monthly basis. What is that account called as? Recurring account?
Recurring
RD, that is
RD, yes.
Okay. And if you're given the instruction to the banker that no withdrawal allowed during the tenure of the RD, that may be 5 years or 10 years, that becomes an escrow account.
Okay.
Right? So where you have read about the escrow account is the balance one.
Yes. Counter trade.
Counter trade. So counter trade means what? You are exporting the goods to one country and you are importing the goods from the same country and with the same people. With the same people. So what happens that Mr. A, he is in India. Mr. B, he is abroad. No, whichever country it may be, I'm not using any particular name. He is exporting goods to Mr. B. At the same time, he is also importing goods from Mr. B. Now, just imagine a situation if every time both the parties are required to make full payments. A is making payment to B and next day B is making payment to A for the same amount. Does it really make good sense? For the purpose of accounting, you can say yes, but not necessarily. So in that situation, escrow account can be opened by the this exporter overseas in India, and the balances can be kept therein. Amount balancing is permitted. So that is called counter trade or counterbalancing trade. So we are not dealing. So by chance, if the goods are being supplied to B and C is supplying the goods to A, then it doesn't work. Then it doesn't work. Right. So what we have discussed, what is the topic here is that if it is the same party between, or rather the trade is between two parties, A is supplying to B, B is supplying to A, then there is a counter trade balance and then there is a escrow account. Okay. So escrow account is specific condition given that this will be used only for transaction between these two people, nothing else.
Sir, and what is forfeiting?
That is what I need to discuss with you.
Okay, that's 12.
This is not forfeiture.
Yeah.
Now, export finance. How you can finance your exports?
In terms of credit.
Maybe your own money, maybe credit.
Yes.
Okay. Own funds. Number 2, borrowed funds. And then comes there is a third type of system. This we can divide in two parts. One is called forfeiting. Another is called factoring. Anyone have come across these things?
Factoring I've heard about, but not forfeiting.
I have heard about forfeiting and factoring, sir.
Okay, good. Now, what happens? Now, let us take an example that there is a export invoice for $50,000. Now there are two options available for the funding. Goods have already been exported. Invoice is raised. When the payment is likely to be received? Maybe you have received some part in advance, some part is remaining within 9 months' time. You are required to get the balance. Okay, all that is possible. But these are two finance schemes against export invoice. In case of forfeiting, this is 100% funding. At agreed price. Without recourse. Without recourse. In simple words, you can understand that this is transfer of financial asset by exporter to forfeiting agency or person. Transfer of financial asset. So if I am the exporter, I have an invoice on which I'm going to realize the money. Is that my financial asset or not? Or let us put it simply, whether debtors are my financial assets or not. How do you show debtors?
Yes, it is a financial asset. Yes.
Right. So all the debtors are our assets until those become NPA. Okay. So invoice raised, that is also a financial asset.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if that is transferred to another person, now what will happen is, who will realize the export proceeds?
The person who has bought it.
Who has purchased that. Any legal issue arising tomorrow, unless it is a case of default committed by the exporter, everything will be handled by that agency only, because the assets have been transferred. And this can be for any period, maybe short term, maybe long term. Okay. When the factoring is there, in this case, 80 to 90% funding of invoice. And here, exporter is the borrower. In this case of forfeiting, whether exporter is a borrower or not?
No. No.
He is not a borrower. He has already sold the asset.
Yeah.
In this case, how much funding he is getting?
Only 80 to 90%.
80 to 90%. That is purely commercial decision, how much funding will be given by the lender. So he is a lender and exporter is the borrower. In this case, the financial asset is sold. So that is the basic difference between what is called forfeiting and what is called factoring.
So forfeiting, is that only related with the project export or even with the normal merchandise?
Everything. Not necessarily only project.
Well.
All right. Because
I have a
usually
problem in my connection, sir. I'm not able to get it.
Hmm?
Okay.
So this is arrangement between the exporter and the forfeiting agency. Depending upon the relationship or depending upon the performance of the exporter, instead of going for factoring, the bank may go for forfeiting. Or there are other agencies there in the market, those who are in the forfeiting.
Yeah.
Usually factoring is done for short term.
SBI has got factoring, sir. SBI factoring is already available in the market.
All banks are
Short-term
doing
credit is.
it. So factoring service is given by all banks. This is usually for short term. What is short term?
Then 1 year, sir. Then 1 year time.
Generally, factoring is done for not more than 90 days. Generally. In a given situation, longer period can also be there. Okay. So, Shweta, did you understand this?
Sir, if that,
Yes, sir.
sir, in case of forfeiting,
Hmm.
so you said it is with recourse or without recourse, sir, like the first thing,
Usually it is without recourse.
which means that if the payment is not realized, for example, the exporter
Hmm.
has given a credit of around 90 days.
Hmm.
I'm audible, sir. I have some problem with my connectivity. The exporter has given a 90 days credit. So he has already sold the invoice to a forfeiting company.
Hmm.
So if that invoice does not realize after that 90 days, it is the responsibility of the forfeiting company to get the money back.
Hmm.
That is called without recourse. Nothing to be done with the exporter now.
Correct. Okay. Now, what happens before forfeiting? There has to be a past track record due diligence as well as there are ECGC guarantees. So whether there is any ECGC insurance is there in relation to that or not. So exceptional situations may always arise in business, but otherwise.
No, here my question regarding here is, so if the money is not realized, without recourse has been taken, if the money is not realized, so will that part will come into exporters, and because in terms of RBI, my EBRC has been already been cleared by RBI. Export, bank realization certificate will be already issued to me. It is nothing to do with anything with my receivables showing in my account.
It is EBIRC will be issued only when the realization is actually done. So whether it is given by the insurance company or it is money is coming from the overseas customer.
Okay.
Okay, so this EBIRC will be issued only when the funds are realized
from the actual importer.
Yes.
to the forfeiting company.
So either the exporter or the third party, depending upon what kind of arrangement is existing there in the course of trade. So
here
whosoever
forfeiting
pays,
company,
but EBIRC will be issued only when the payment is actually been realized.
no, here in this case, forfeiting company is already credit the amount to my account number.
That is account, but that is local.
Yes. So it is not considered as
It is not an inward remittance of the foreign exchange.
realization.
It is not equal to. So when the actual realization comes, it is only the forfeiting agency which will get the EBIRC.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Sir, what is the difference between bill discounting and forfeiting?
So I think you know much better than me.
I think, sir, bill discounting is the another name for forfeiting. That's what.
Bill discounting again the issuer or the seller, he is the borrower for the bill discounting.
Yeah.
Right, but in forfeiting there is no recourse to the seller. So for you, the bill discounting is more comparable to the factoring services.
So, sir, actually there is underlying financial assets also in bill discounting. For the LC given by the buyer, that works a fund.
So bill discounting is for a very short period of time.
No, it goes up to 6 months, 1 year also.
What is the general term allowed for the bill discounting?
In domestic market, we call it bill discounting. I think in international trade, we may be calling it forfeiting.
No. International name, it is called as foreign bill purchasing, sir. I have already had that facilities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
FBP, there are two
another
types
name
of
given to the
financing.
factoring services.
So factoring, with my due knowledge, factoring, factoring person can also be a consultant for that particular project or a particular shipment. He can give some consultancy, whether what all the product can be sold, how the market will be, favoring. So those kind of a thing can be done by the factoring company, and factoring can also be with recourse or without recourse as well, sir. That is what I have read.
Yeah. Factoring can be both ways,
Yes.
but forfeiting is always without a recourse.
Okay. So here it is both, factoring can be both with recourse and without recourse also.
Both are allowed. So here it is given AD has been permitted to factor the export receivables on a non-recourse basis. So when it is coming to factoring here,
Non-recourse.
chapter particularly, this is on a non-recourse basis. Otherwise, there can be recourse as well. Okay. So here the procedure has been given. Authorized dealer banks may take their own business decision to enter into the factoring arrangement on the non-recourse basis. That is their commercial decision. No guidelines from RBI. Right? And they said they should ensure that their client is not over-financed. What is the meaning of over-financing? Because ultimately there is a cost of finance. So by chance there is over-financing, because of cost of finance itself, the person dies or the business dies. Accordingly, they may determine the working capital requirements of their clients, taking into account the value of the invoices purchased for factoring. And in case of export financing, not has been done by export factor, the export factor may pass on the net value of the finance institution after realizing the export proceeds. So yes, are a procedure. All this is procedural. That is not important for you. What is important for you to understand is that there are two ways of export financing under this scheme. That is, one is forfeiting, another is factoring. Then project export means the payment is going to be received in installments. So that is a deferred payment system actually. That is called a project export. So whenever there is any execution of the project which is going to take more than a year, that is treated as a project export. Any export which is in parts, and if it is more than a year, it is treated as a project export. So export of engineering goods on deferred payment terms and execution of turnkey projects and civil construction contracts abroad are collectively referred as project export. This is one particular definition given, the deferred payment terms, right? And execution of turnkey projects and civil construction. And Indian exporters are required to obtain approval of authorized dealer. But when the approval is to be taken?
Post-award stage, before undertaking execution.
Post-award stage means it is presumed that once somebody has got a contract for project.
To watch full video, join the regular online batch Call Tayal Institute.